Welcome to this month's edition of the Property Insider. My name's Josh Rutman, Executive Director and Head of Capital Markets for Victoria. So I'm joined this month by Tim Carr, who looks after our office investments team here in Victoria. Tim, welcome. Big talking point, whether office is what it used to be, how investors feel about it. I think the real crux of it, from what I can sense, is what's happening on the occupier front. So what are tenants doing? What are owner-occupiers doing? What are their needs? What are their desires? How is that affecting demand? And ultimately how that translates to the investment class itself.
Yeah, thanks Josh, and thanks for having me. Owner-occupiers, it's a really interesting phenomenon we're seeing in the market at the moment. 5 out of the last 7 transactions in the fringe and suburban markets have transacted to owner-occupiers, which represents $90 million worth of transactions. And we're also seeing that in the city as well. We recently just sold a building at 333 Queen Street on the corner of Latrobe Street to a partial owner-occupier who's taking a long-term view of the city. So it's definitely resonating in the market.
And it's interesting because that flies in the face of interest rates being at a much higher level than what they used to be, but owner-occupiers still are prevailing as the preferred purchasers. Would you say that's partially because investors are pulling back a little bit on the asset class in the current period?
Yeah, I think definitely. Melbourne's been a market that's been traditionally dominated by these private family businesses who have really pinned their ears back when it comes to investment opportunities. And now owner-occupiers are starting to sense their opportunity to get into the market. They might have made some capital over the last 5 to 10 years and looking to deploy that to build asset wealth for their business, but also to have a headquarters that means something to their employees as well.
So one was in Trenary Crescent in Abbotsford. That was a really impressive landmark sale in the city fringe to a major owner-occupier on a short settlement. They were the top bidder by some margin. And then we looked at 333 Queen Street, which you just mentioned, which is the largest office building sale for the Melbourne CBD this year, remarkably. And the buyer there is going to move their own business into part of that building. Is that right?
That's right. And I guess that trend's only continuing. We've got a number of campaigns at the moment, and traditionally owner-occupiers, they behave like a residential purchaser. So if they like something, they typically outperform the investor market because they can see their business in the property itself.
Makes sense. And I think if we translate that to international investor interest, I was just in Singapore and Hong Kong on a roadshow for a couple of assets that we're selling at the moment. Some of the feedback on office is they really want to know where we're at on the return to work agenda, how far that occupancy story is going to go and which buildings are going to thrive and which ones are going to be left behind. But I still think the interest in the office market is there. It's just that returns need to reflect some of the risks that have come into that market. So whilst we've seen a bit of a lull in proceedings from a demand perspective, I expect that we'll see a real uptick over the next 6 months, particularly Q1, Q2, where there's a real understanding as to where we sit from an occupier standpoint. Interest rates have hopefully stabilised, and I think foreign capital will play a really large role in transactional activity for office next year. So that's a quick snapshot of what we're seeing in the office sector here in Victoria. If you'd like access to some further research, data, market intelligence, transactional information, please contact Tim or anyone in the team. And of course, in this month's edition of the Property Insider, we have a number of trends and insights that we are sharing on that sector as well as others. We also mentioned some major transactions that are coming up in the market, which will be a great test of where pricing currently sits. We look forward to working with you in the month ahead and wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you.